everybody, it's Gypsy, and welcome to On the Edge of Appalachia. Today is Saturday, November 5th. No, not November 5th. Today is Saturday, November 8th, 2025. Hard to believe, this year's gone by so quickly. And I'm on my way to the flea market to vend. I hope we have a good day, but I don't know, when the weather gets bad, it gets slower. As you can see, it's overcast. A couple days ago, it was sunny and in the 50s. Yesterday, it started raining and it just kept getting colder. Well, they're forecasting tomorrow night, Sunday night, it's going to start snowing. Ugh. And it looks like, I don't know, I think they said from Sunday to Monday night, or maybe Sunday to Tuesday, we're supposed to get 3 to 5 inches of snow. Now, they're saying probably won't stick because the ground is still warm. Sometimes it ends up not being true. I mean, I remember we had, back in 2012, this huge snowstorm. And it was on October 24th, 2012. Huge snowstorm. And it stuck. Now, it was a very heavy, wet snow because, it was, October. And it brought down power lines, brought down a tree branch on my car because the snow was so heavy, but it stuck. So who knows what's going to happen. But it said, may not stick, may not accumulate. Anyways, I'm not ready yet. I'm just not ready. I just got my greenhouse taken down and, my gardens are secure now, but it's like, I'm just not ready. So, winter seems to go on forever for me. Anyways, I was listening to this really interesting podcast this morning, and they were talking about time and how our lives have always been controlled by time. What did she call that? Clockwork, but not clockwork. She had this really cool word for what she was trying to say, but in other words, being controlled by the clock, being run by the clock. But she mentioned there was a time in human history when people were not controlled by time. They had calendars, but their calendars were not the Gregorian calendars. They were natural, based on nature, based on the moon, based on natural cycles. And that's how they lived. There was no being controlled by the calendar, by the clock, by, whatever. Boy, that would be a nice way to live. They mentioned, now, one looks like she's about my age. The other one I know is in her 70s. I'm 61. So, the older one, she was saying her great-grandparents, she said her great-grandfather was born during the Civil War. And she said for them, they were not controlled by the clock. They lived their lives, they ran their businesses and stuff, but nobody was controlled by the clock. Which is true. I believe that to be true. I think for my great-grandparents, I think for most of their lives that was true. I think when they got older and the Industrial Revolution started and stuff like that, maybe that's when it came to be. But I would say, my great-grandparents, pretty much the same thing. Definitely my great-great-grandparents didn't have that. So by the time you got to like my parents' generation, definitely controlled by the clock. You had to be out the door dressed and ready to go to work. You had to, then at night you had to be here or there at a certain time. So our lives were run by the clock, which I think is pretty sad. But like she mentioned, it seems to be reversing, which I think is a really good thing. And she says, I believe the lockdowns did that. And I saw that too. I agree with her. Because that's there is, in my opinion, a silver lining to everything. Depends on how you look at it and how you use it. With the lockdowns, I saw a lot of silver linings. One of them being that people started working from home, running their own schedules. Now I have people in my life who are close to me who don't agree with me on this, but I see it this way. I think it's a wonderful, mentally healthy thing for humanity. So it is reversing where, okay, people are working from home like they used to. Different jobs because of technology and stuff, unless you are like still a farmer. But you do see people also, well, starting their own small businesses. So I guess, yeah, a lot of the ways it is how it used to be. But then you also have the added, well, more corporate jobs because of technology that you could do from home. If I'm making sense here. You know, for instance, this woman, I subscribe to her channel on YouTube. She makes beautiful jewelry out of polymer clay. She had a video this morning, these gorgeous, gorgeous earrings. Beautiful. And I said, do you only make earrings? Because I don't wear earrings. And your jewelry is so pretty. She goes, well, I just got a bigger, I don't know if she said older, something she needed to make pendants. She said, what's your favorite colors? I said, purple and black. So there you have it. You have someone who's running a business from home. And I don't even know where she lives, where on this planet she lives. I think she's American, but I have no idea where. I mean, she could be Canadian too, or she could be living somewhere else. But she reached me because I follow her channel. I love her jewelry, you know, and, you know, it's just... So she's living on her own time, in her own way, her own style. So I have been very happy that one of the silver linings from lockdowns was that. They thought they were separating us, keeping us secluded. It's a little difficult these days. I mean, I think there's a huge difference between meeting with people in person and meeting with people online. There is. But when you can't meet in person, guess what's the next best thing? It's kind of like the telephone, you know, when that came out during my grandparents' time. Anyways, so, you know, time has changed throughout human history. And this is another thing. You know, she was saying, I feel like they have convinced us, you know, of these like cycles in time. God, this guy's been behind me the whole time I've been driving. That, you know, like Rome, she mentioned, died after 250 years. She says that does not mean America has to. And although things are very different here these days, you know, she was saying we can keep our country going. We can do it. And you do see a lot of Americans digging in their heels, as we tend to do, in fighting for our country. Come on, baby. There you go. You know, it doesn't have to be that way. It all depends on where humanity, as a collective especially, puts their focus. So, my point is, okay, like in my life, the majority of my life was run by the clock. Believe me. And it was like Groundhog's Day every single day. Never got to really enjoy my children and stuff like that because, you know, they had to be at school. I had to be at work. I had to be there. I had to pick them up. Or, you know, it was just like, it was horrible. And my younger son, to this day, he's 27 years old. You cannot convince that boy that there is such a thing as trying to squeeze too many activities in a small amount of time. He will try to do it. this kid, he's no longer a kid. He's married now, but it's like he will try to do as much as he possibly can because he's one of those people who so badly wants to experience life to the fullest. And so I'm glad for especially people like him where that's going to the wayside that we are ruled by the clock. We never should be. So now, okay, people are working at home or having their own businesses and stuff. So those chains of the clock are being broken. And I'm so happy to see that. And I had that most of my life of being ruled by the clock. But when I got older, especially after my older son died, I began to kind of refuse to be ruled by the clock. And I was, and I have to say, you could call it lucky. Don't know. I will look at it as a blessing. That's what I'm choosing to look at it. I was on disability by that time. So it was easier for me at that time in 2014 to refuse to be ruled by the clock. When I was younger, I was ruled by the clock and I did not know how to break those chains. So what I am seeing, I am not jealous of the younger people who now have the opportunity to not be ruled by the clock. I am so happy for them. I am so excited for them. They can be themselves. They can be their true selves. They can live the life they want. They can make their life their own. There isn't somebody telling them what they should do for a living, what they should be, where they need to be at any certain time. So yeah, you want to meet up with someone or something like this, one thing, but constant every day, and then ends up being Groundhog's Day. That's a whole other story. But to have that freedom and be true to yourself, and I had a young woman come into my booth, maybe a month ago, and she was telling me how, she almost started to apologize or something, or over-explain herself. She wanted to buy something, but she says she couldn't at this time. She says, my husband works, but I stay home. I said, you have kids? And she said, yeah, and I said, no. I said, I'm asking because I'm so happy for you guys. I'm happy you could do that. I'm happy you made that decision. I'm happy for your children. I'm happy for you. Because I have a lot of regrets that have to do with that. And I'm glad to see that now parents, particularly women, actually have a choice. Because let me tell you, women's lib took women's choice away. Because if you became a mother in the 80s like I did, you didn't have a choice. You were going to work. You had to leave your baby. Parents should never have to do that. The best place for children is with their parents. Or if it can't be with the parents, maybe grandparents, aunt and uncle, extended family. But never, ever. I'm gonna use the word institution. Never with an institution. So, another silver lining there. The kids get to be where they belong. They do not belong to the government or the state or however you want to call it. They don't. They belong to their family, their parents. So, yes, I feel very strongly about that. So it's good to see that. And it's just I'm so glad it's changed. It doesn't really, at this point in my life, it doesn't make that big of a difference because I kind of would have been at this point whether things had changed or not. But I'm glad to see it for the younger people, especially my son. He needs to have more time where he could live life. He needs to live life. If he's not living life to the fullest, he gets grouchy. And believe me, he takes after his mother with the temper. You don't want to see that. Out of the four of us, we're the only two that have Sicilian in us. So it isn't pretty when we get mad. So, but yeah, it's just the way. I love that about my son. Always wants to live life to the fullest. Except he used to exhaust me. Because I'm like, Christian, we cannot get this many activities done in the short amount of time we have. We couldn't. There was no way. But man, he always wanted to try it. He still does. And now that he's getting close to 30, I can see him wearing out a little bit more quickly. You know, not extreme fatigue or anything, but like, actually at night, he'll be like, okay, I need to rest now. Except for nights like last night, you know, they came home, got off the road. He likes to get his guitar. My son, okay, bragging moment, maternal bragging moment. My son has a beautiful singing voice, plays the guitar really, really good, and he will just like go when he gets home. He will. Oh, I thought the dog was going to get loose. He will go get his guitar and just start singing for us, and you know, and it's so wonderful. It is, you know, just such a wonderful thing to hear that in the evening. My son's beautiful voice, and then I go to sleep. You know, feels good. Okay, my maternal bragging moment is over, I think. I hope. Yeah. Yeah. And you know, it's hard to explain, but because my son is the way he is, and my daughter-in-law is like a quieter person. She can't take after. I'm not her mother, but we have a lot in common. But man, she keeps up with him. She does, and because they are so creative with life in their time, I am a very spoiled mom. I am. And it's like, I don't know how they do it. But you saw, I mean, it's like, always, they're wonderful. So I'm very spoiled. But anyways, I want to see that for all young people. I want to see old people have a good life. I don't want anyone watching my grandfather and my mom in a nursing home was very difficult for me. And, you know, my mom died 2 years ago. And I'm in my 60s. So you know what I'm afraid of. I do not want to end up that way. Live free or die is my motto. If I'm not living free, I'd rather die. It wouldn't be pretty. It would not. Because I don't like people, especially people who I'm like old enough to be their mother or grandmother telling me what to do. No. Where's my bourbon at 7 o'clock, okay? Why tell me no? I don't understand telling young people or old people no. When they're in a nursing home. What's the point? It's too late. So I'm going to leave you with that. Blessed be, and make it a joy.